Alright, X. You probably won't believe me, as I'm not even sure myself if I believe it. But I'm going to tell you this. You guys are the only people who won't immediately dismiss my story as insane, but you don't have to stay here, so keep that in mind. I've written this all out in advance, for both your and my own convenience, and there are too many aspects to try and take the time to post this as I write it. My family has a history of mental illness. This is what I'm going to start off with, as a bit of a disclaimer to you all. My uncle killed himself. My grandfather blew his own brains out. My mother is bipolar. My father's father used to sexually assault people. The list goes on. So anyways, this all starts off about 2 months ago, on the last day of the semester for college. Now, I normally get a ride home as the walk is a bit long, but today, my mother, she picks me up and I live with her, I know, couldn't use your car at the time due to repair issues, so I was stuck walking this time. The path I went on is a bit of a back way on a gravel road surrounded by trees. I decided to go this way because it was the same distance and it was hot, so I figured the trees would provide me with some shade. So off I go on my merry way in sandals. The rocks on the ground getting stuck in my toes and stabbing my feet. After what I estimate about 15 minutes, I accidentally stepped into a muddy hole and promptly yelled out a multitude of obscenities. So now I had to not only walk home, but walk with one leg covered in mud. Continuing, I trudged on, with drying mud on my foot only to yet again walk into another hole. After this point, things started to become familiar. Yes, you know where this is going. The trees were the same, the road was the same, and yet again, I stepped into the same mud hole. Now, I frequently visit X. My first thought was that this was something paranormal. Although I admit I was disturbed, I trudged back down the path in hopes that I'd find myself at the college again. To my dismay, I did not. Instead, I had come across the same mud hole from the opposite direction. So at this point, I was starting to panic. Many thoughts began racing through my head. Would I be stuck in the strange loop and die here? Was there something waiting for me in the trees? Am I going insane? I immediately ran down the path as fast as I could. I even left behind my bags and books, and ran with every ounce of my energy that I had. As expected, I ran past my own pile of junk several times before I decided to sit next to it and try to rationalize everything out. I stayed vigilant of my surroundings and made a point to look around me for anything at all that stood out. At this point, I thought, what if I just go through the trees here? And I began thinking this is all a game, looking for any loopholes or solutions out of this. So I walked through a seemingly endless stream of trees, only to end up on the other side, staring at my books. I have severe anxiety, and this entire situation was making me sick. I stopped and blew my entire lunch up before sitting down again. Finally, in my desperation, I tried to climb one of the trees. I made it a decent way up before promptly falling from it and landing on my back. It arched, but I was okay. So I laid there, feeling like I was going to die. I then fell asleep, and after an unknown period of sleeping, I awoke to a man standing over me, asking if I was okay. I looked around and looked at him, with a terrified look in my face. He asked me again if I needed to go to a hospital, and all I said was, no, just take me home. Although he was admittedly concerned, he let me pack up my stuff in his truck, and drove me down the path. Only this time, instead of ending up in a loop, we actually came out of the loop and onto the next street, and he drove me home. I grabbed my stuff and walked into my house. I expected my mom to ask me why I'd been gone for so long, but she simply said hello and continued on about her business. I looked at the clock in the living room and found that it had only been 30 minutes since I left the college. I was both exhausted and afraid. So I went to my room, locked the door, and laid on my bed thinking about what just happened. So I went to sleep and woke up the next day, the first day of summer for me. I was too afraid to tell anyone about what happened, and decided to ignore it and hope that it had all been a very vivid hallucination. The next week or two went by fairly uneventful, and although the whole scenario was still in my mind, I was starting to think that the heat was just causing my mind to play tricks on me, that things were okay. Lol, too bad for me. I was either very wrong, or my brain decided it was time to fuck me in the ass. strange events began happening, not as over the top as the first event, but unsettling. Nonetheless, I saw extremely dark figures roaming the halls, something out of the corner of my eye. Other times, they would walk right in front of me before disappearing, and every time, nobody else in my house could see them. It began happening more and more frequently, and I even considered telling the story to you guys about a month ago, but I figured I'd be disregarded as a troll. As it went on, even stranger things began occurring. I began losing chunks of time. I'd finish lunch, and less than a minute later, I'd look out the window to see darkness, and my mom would be preparing dinner. Then, events began elongating. I went into my room one afternoon and laid there for a good couple of hours, just staring at the ceiling before talking, what felt like a several-hour nap. And then I awoke. I looked at the clock to find it had been no more than 5 minutes. More recently, the most disturbing and unsettling of these events began happening. I had still told no one about what was going on, so I tried to act fine in front of my family. I was sitting down, eating dinner, and when I finished, I walked down the hall to my room silently before closing my door. I saw, and I am absolutely fucking certain of this, myself walking down the hall. Myself walking down the hall. I was looking at myself walk down the hall, and I saw myself walk into the bathroom. I ran down, opened the bathroom door to find nobody in there. I ran into the dining room to find everyone gone. I ran into the dining room to find everybody gone, no food on the table, and thought it should have been nighttime. The sun was rising, and it was morning. This began occurring more often. And even worse, I'll end up in places I don't remember being, and with no clue of when I was there. I'll be doing one thing, and suddenly, I'm no longer there, and I'm somewhere else. On one occasion, I was on my laptop, suddenly finding myself standing in the Walmart, and I saw myself walking away in front of me with a carton of groceries. I went up to a cashier and asked them if I just checked out my groceries with them, and they said I had. I ran out of the store and found my mom in the car with groceries packed in the car already, and she turns to me and tells me to hurry up and get in the car like nothing had happened. My life has become one horrifying event. Days bleed into each other. Things that have already happened happen again. I see copies of myself, or even other people walking away from something while the other is still doing it. It's like time itself is collapsing on itself, and I'm the only one who notices it. I'm frankly at the end of my rope, and have no idea what the fuck is going on. The only reason I think I can keep this thread going, because I've been able to find certain times where things remain fairly normal. However, everything is slowly becoming more and more bizarre, and I'm scared about what's going to happen next. The only reason I'm even telling you guys all this is because I have to tell someone, or I'm going to kill myself. I might do it anyways. Like I said, you guys probably not believe any of this. All I know is that whether this is real, or I'm just going insane, I don't think I'll put up with it any longer. Hopefully, ending myself will at least go without any issues.
Made a thread at the start of the year about some weird experiences I had as a Boy Scout. I'll just post what I had in here. I've lived my entire life in Oklahoma, and it's probably just about as rural as most of you think it is. Outside of Oklahoma City, Moore, Norman area, and Tulsa, Oklahoma is mostly small towns, casinos, and lots, and I mean lots, of woods and open plains. Backcountry galore, a perfect place to teach young scouts the basics without throwing them right into the heat of the fray. It's usually pretty quiet everywhere you go, and people are generally friendly. We're the definition of a flyover state. If there's one thing people probably immediately relate to Oklahoma, it's Indian/native land/reservation/folklore/etc. While this stuff isn't prevalent in bigger cities, it becomes incredibly prominent as you enter the more rural parts of the state. For those curious, I'm not sure how much land is still legally considered native, but it's probably more than any other state. This particular incident occurred the summer of 2011 at a scout camp, not too far from the Oklahoma/Texas border. This was the last trip I ever made out there, and I don't really regret it. Camp lasts Sunday through Saturday 1 week. Arrive on Sunday, work on merit badges Monday, Thursday, chill Friday, leave Saturday. The leaders of my troop were comprised almost entirely of one family, whom I'll call the Perkins. There was a great-grandfather, C, the grandfather, D, and the grandson, Buck. C was about 75 when I joined, and fit the crotchety old man stereotype like a glove. He was abrasive, impatient, and quick to lose his temper, while at the same time happy to help any boy who didn't ask stupid questions. C was also a war veteran, not sure which war though. D was a lot like his father, except, I don't know, cryptic? I guess what I'm trying to say is that you could tell D had seen some shit. He was a little out there. Very my way or the highway, do what I say if you don't want to die kind of guy. Probably 60-ish, built like a bear. The man was massive and intimidating, and he knew it. To this day, I think D knows a hell of a lot more about this particular incident than he'll ever tell, but I never had the courage to ask him about anything. Buck, their grandson, was about a year older than me. Buck was a bit thick in the head, but he was tough and built like his granddad. He was also as loyal as a golden retriever, and the word fear wasn't exactly in his rather limited vocabulary, but I digress. Another key player was my best friend at the time, Dylan. Dylan was stubborn, headstrong, and generally looking for trouble. He and I started scouts together at 6, and were the only two that had stuck together since that time. We were usually inseparable, which probably saved our lives that night. Now, I was the opposite of Dylan. I was meek, easily scared, and suffered from constitutional delay, which means that I looked like I was 10 even though I was 15, pick related. I'm the scrawny kid in blue. This was taken earlier in 2011 around April. So anyway, we had been to scout camp for as long as I'd been involved with the troop, every summer, usually in June or July. We'd make our week trip down there and head home. Dylan and I knew what the camp was supposed to feel like and sound like, as did C and D, who had been going there for 20 odd years or so. This year, we immediately knew something was off. Have you ever walked into a place and just felt like bad vibes? Like bad energy just kind of taking up residence somewhere. It was kind of like that the moment we drove through the gates. The younger boy seemed pretty oblivious, but I knew Dylan felt like I did. And D? Man, I don't think I've ever seen D as tense as he was that whole week. He was normally pretty chillaxed, if a little strict, but he was on edge the moment we arrived on the grounds until we left on Saturday. I suppose the best way to do this from here on out is to give a chronological account of events that happened day to day over the week. That's the only way I can think to do this without losing myself in you guys. The first thing you do when arriving at the camp is to drive to the registration office to confirm campsites, number of boys, sleepers, etc. We did this, but D was gone for a very long time. When he came back, he was being escorted by the camp ranger, as D was hopping back into the sedan. I remember hearing the ranger say something like, "Just let me know as soon as possible if anything happens." While this isn't an odd thing to say or hear, I now wonder if it held a deeper meaning. Our campsite was toward the northeast end of the camp, down in a tiny valley surrounded by rock outcroppings on the north and south. The northern outcroppings were split from east to west, and created what we called the storm shelter, basically this little crevice we'd hide in if severe weather ever sprang up. I was assigned to check up on it, make sure it was clear of debris and shit before the week started. So I walk around to the shelter, and I'm slammed with this awful smell. I knew it was something dead, and it smelled big. Once I got down into the crevice, I saw that it wasn't something big, but a bunch of smaller animals in piles. Birds, foxes, raccoons, parts of deer. There was a ton of dead, mutilated bodies back there. I nearly puked, it smelled so bad. The heat didn't help either. Alarm bells weren't ringing yet, but I was definitely weirded out. I told D about it, and he said he'd have a look and clean up, and that I should just forget about it. Pick related, similar looking to the storm shelter. Monday. Our campsite was basically set up as one giant semicircle. Our tents formed a ring that almost enclosed pavilions in the center. Very little time was actually spent at our campsite, as we were all out working on our merit badges, at the mess hall, cantina, shooting range, lake, etc. There was no reason for any boy to be in camp, and it was rare to find someone who wanted to stay in camp. And Monday night we decided to shoot, or rather Dylan decided to shoot. I was a terrible shot, and didn't want to pay for ammo I'd end up wasting. We were about halfway to the range when he realized he'd forgotten his money, so we turned around and headed back towards camp. When we got there, it was empty as expected, but we noticed one of the tent flaps had been left opened. Big problem there. D was constantly on us to keep our flaps shut, so as to keep any curious woodland animals and insects out of our tents. So I walked over to zip it up, when I realized that it was still zipped, and that the door had slightly ripped open. The tent had been ransacked. Sleeping bags were shredded, trunks flipped over, and supplies gone through. It was an utter wreck. I called Dylan over, and our conversation went something like, "Shit man, holy hell, who would do this?" I don't know. It wasn't one of our boys. D would make sure he'd never see the light of day again. Should we tell him? Do you want to have your head a bit off? Let's let him find it for himself. That was a stupid decision in hindsight. We should have found D and alerted him immediately. But since we didn't want to suffer his wrath, we didn't. When we got back to camp that night, everyone was on edge. All the younger boys were freaking out, whispering about Bigfoot, etc. D told us that the rest of the week, we all had to be back at camp before sundown, which I thought was kind of pointless. The tent had been ransacked during the day, but whatever. Pick related, similar to the campsite. Tuesday was actually pretty uneventful. All I recall is that some boys a couple campsites over from ours got spooked because they heard noises in and around their campsite at night. If I'm being honest, that could have been anything. There's an awful lot of animal life out in rural Oklahoma, and it's not unusual for new/amateur scouts to accidentally lure raccoons, foxes, occasionally bigger things into camp by leaving food out at night. But I still have to wonder if it was related to any other experiences that week. Wednesday was different. The bad vibes seemed to have gotten stronger. Or maybe that was just me getting more wound up, I don't know. What I do know is that the mess hall had been broken into the night before and utterly wrecked. Food had been half-eaten, supplies were strewn everywhere. At least, that's what I heard. We weren't allowed up the mess hall until dinner that night, by which time the camp had cleaned everything up. Of course, everyone was on edge now. There were mutterings and whisperings, rumors circulating that basically would have been an wet dream. Did you hear? They found some homeless guy camping out on the other side of the lake. Tom found some really weird footprints outside his tent last night. Did you see them? I heard some weird mating call last night. Did anyone else? Could have sworn I was being stalked while walking back to camp last night. Anyone else feel the same way? Out of all these rumors, there was one that stuck out to me after the week was over. And the only reason it did is because it reminded me of my experience on Sunday. I found a dead raccoon outside my tent last night. It was like mutilated and shit. Which one of you fuckers thought that would be funny? I guess outside of the mess hall business, Wednesday was pretty uneventful too, just really tense. Thursday. Holy shit, man. Thursday night. The camp would always sort of hold this party thing out by the main gate to sort of celebrate the hard work everyone had put in over the week. There would be a bonfire, a chuck wagon, basically the canteen on wheels, stories and songs, a lot of Boy Scout stuff, you know? Anyways, D was super against letting anyone in the troop go. He wanted to keep every boy in camp that night, but after listening to 12 and 13-year-olds whine and cry for 30 minutes, he kinda begrudgingly changed his mind and allowed them to go as long as they were escorted by the older boys. So Buck, Dylan, and I were pretty much responsible for corralling 15 middle schoolers. D said he had a meeting to go to, which I knew was a lie. Scoutmaster meetings were always held in the mornings, never at night, but what the hell. So the three of us start walking them down there. When I realized that we left the flashlights back at camp, we only have about 5 minutes of light left. I tell Dylan and Buck to go on ahead of me, but both insist on coming. In the end, Buck escorted the kids to the bonfire while Dylan and I went back to camp. This was a mistake for multiple reasons. We had only been gone about 10 minutes, which means it was almost dark once we got back. But our camp was totaled. Our pavilions had been torn down, tents and their contents were strewn about everywhere. Food was out and scattered. It was a complete mess. Alarm bells were basically screaming, code red, get the fuck out right now. But Dylan was already into the camp before I could stop him. That's when the smell hit us. The smell of dead, decaying stuff. But this time it was mixed with something else. Kind of like spoiled milk. I'm not entirely sure how to describe it. Not the burnt copper/blood scent X says is related to the goatman. I know what that smells like. This was something else. Dylan and I both agreed we needed to find D ASAP. Fate was on our side that night, because not a second later he rushed into camp in full commando mode. I'm talking giant knife on his hip, brandishing a pistol, sorry, I don't know anything about guns, and the biggest flashlights I've ever seen. Dylan and I immediately start blubbering to D about what was going on and begging for answers, and almost crying. He told both of us to shut up and the rest, but in the quietest voice I've ever heard. That's when I noticed his face for the first time. He had a gash down on the right side of his forehead that was bleeding pretty profusely, and a massive bruise beginning to envelop the left side of his face. It looked like he picked a fight with a titanium beam. and lost. Let me remind you that D is about 6'7" and around 260 pounds of pure muscle. Whatever bested him was fucking strong. D beckoned us over to him, and the conversation was something like, "Where the hell are the kids?" "The bonfire, sir." "What the fuck are you two doing back here?" "We forgot the flashlight, sir." "Alright, here's what's gonna happen. Dylan, I'm gonna give you this knife, okay? Anon, you go get those flashlights you were talking about and point them towards the storm shelter. I'm going over there. If anything but me comes out, you two run like hell. Do you understand?" We nodded and off we went. He rounded the corner into the shelter, and that's about when we heard the noise. Have you ever heard someone trying to talk while choking on their own blood or something like that? The sort of gurgling, gasping noise. That's what it sounded like, mixed with a sort of low growling. Dylan and I stood there frozen for what felt like hours, but was probably more like 5 minutes when the noise abruptly ceased and D returned pale as a sheet, but in one piece. So D escorted us there, and refused to answer any of our questions or give us any sort of closure to what just happened. All he said was, "I don't think we have to worry about anything for the rest of the week." So we went to the bonfire, but Dylan and I kept to ourselves and tried to figure out what the hell was going on. When we got back to camp, we did our best to repair as much as we could in the dark. Dylan and I didn't sleep at all that night. We were wide awake. At what must have been about midnight, I heard a few noises outside and saw a flashlight beam waving around before finally coming to a still position, pointed towards the storm shelter. I poked my head out of my tent and observed D sitting in a chair, flashlight pointed at the storm shelter, watching and waiting. I watched D all night, and Friday I finally got some answers. By Friday, I mean about 6:30 in the morning. Around then, C came out of his tent and proceeded to have a not exactly quiet conversation with D. Now bear with me as I'm reconstructing this from memory, so some bits might not be entirely accurate. "Anything new?" "No, I've been out there all night. Nothing since I saw it earlier." "I still think you're wrong. They never come this far south, especially this time of year. Must have been something else." "I know what I saw, Dad. I'm telling you, they're getting bolder. Or more desperate." "Well, I'm heading to the mess hall. Need my coffee. Want anything?" And they proceeded to talk about breakfast for a while, and C eventually left. I figured if I wanted any sort of closure as to last night, now was my chance to talk to D alone. So I approached D, but before I could say anything, he turns around and gives me a look that could have curdled new milk. I stopped in my tracks, and he says, "Come, sit." So I sat next to him, and this is all I got out of him. "You were pretty brave last night, kid. Incredibly stupid, but brave." "What did you see, sir?" "Nothing." He was quiet for a good 5 minutes, and I finally mustered up the courage to ask him what the hell was going on. "Sir?" "Yeah." "Pardon me, sir, but what was it? What's going on?" "How old are you, Anon?" 15, sir." "Anon, the world is a far darker place than you realize right now. You're too young. Let me give a piece of advice that you need to keep in your head during times just like this. Don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to, or that you already know the answer to." "Do I know the answer to this question, sir?" "Do you?" "It wasn't natural, was it, sir?" "Depends on your definition of natural. Anon, to me, the thing that terrorized us all week is as natural as any other creature in these woods and on this earth. Simply a darker side of nature. One that usually stays away from heavily trafficked areas like this. They don't like people in large groups." "Then what's it doing here, sir?" "Honestly, Anon, I don't know. I think it got confused. Lost even." "Is it gone, sir?" "For now, yes. I don't think it will come back while we're here." Dylan woke up about then, as did the rest of the camp, so our conversation was cut short. The rest of Friday was pretty uneventful. Dylan, Buck, and I palled around the camp for a while, talking about what we thought it was, or rather, Buck and I did. Dylan didn't really want to talk about it, and acted increasingly irritated as the day went on. Friday night all was well. I slept heavily. Had bad dreams, but I slept. Saturday. We were up about 6:30 that morning to tear down camp. I was ready to go, and even though D was reassuring Friday morning, I could tell he was eager to leave too. He was tense, and would often stop to look towards the storm shelter. About 11:30, Dee asked me to check the shelter area and clean it up with him, even though no one had actually used it at all that week. We got back there, and it was completely different than what I'd seen Sunday. It had been cleaned, spotlessly so, and something similar to pick-related had been marked on each side of the canyon walls. I assume it's native, but I don't know what it means, and I have never particularly cared to find out. We left about noon, and I've never gone back. So that's my big story, the one I can't really explain. I know Dee knew way more than he was letting on. I think Buck knew more than I did too, but he clammed up whenever I tried to talk to him about it. So X, what do you think? What was it? I think it was Native American, to say the least.
Here's a story about my attempt to photograph a crawler. Be me. Live in a small town in a northern part of the US. Around December of 2022, there had been crawler sightings in town. It got to the point where some people were seeing 2 or 3 at a time every few nights. Don't believe the sightings at first, until one night, I am driving back from my shitty wagey job. Spot 1, walking along the road into the forest. It walked, like both feet were nailed to a plank of wood. It was also gaunt, with long, spindly limbs. The thing was naked and half white/gray skin. It didn't get a good look at its face. I doubt it was a homeless person or a drug addict, due to how cold it was that night. Decide to try and get a photograph. Come on to X and ask for tips on cryptid photography. Get some good pointers about getting good camouflage and equipment. Best tip was to ask local hunters for advice. There are a few people who hunt for fun in my town, but most of them go to hunting preserves outside of the town. There are 2 dudes who know how to hunt and have a good understanding of the area. I'll call them Martin and Jake. Martin is 30-ish, kinda shifty and quiet. He moved to the area back in 2016 after getting in trouble with some of the law enforcement down south. He now spends most of his days walking around aimlessly around the town when not drunk in his RV. Jake is 63 years old and has lived in the town since before most of the roads were properly paved. His father used to take him hunting in the woods when he was a child. Both men know a lot about the area and agreed to help me get a few photos. They tell me they want to wait for the storms to subside and the snow to melt a little. Decide that February 28th would be a nice date to shoot for us. Agree, and during the time, they teach me useful stuff like how to avoid detection by fox walking and making camo out of dead foliage. Slowly, sightings of the crawlers dwindle, and by late January, there was only a few sightings every 2 weeks. Weather was pretty bad, so we moved the trip to the 1st of March. Day of the trip comes around. We head into the woods. Jake has his father's old Garand. Martin has an old beat-up Winchester shotgun. We hike in the woods, and for the first few hours, swapping stories and chatting about life. Nothing too bad happened that first night. In the morning, we stumble across something odd. It was a wolf, or what was left of it. It stunk like high heaven, and its head and stomach were the only parts left. The rest of the day, we were more alert. No more fun stories after that. Martin wants to head back. It was pretty cold too, and the previous night had been pretty bad. We decide to cut the trip short by 2 days and just spend one more day out. Jake says we should head to one of the creeks where a few animals usually congregate around. While we're walking to the creek, the smell returns, and it's downright nauseating. Martin starts getting vocal about wanting to head back. Jake also is starting to show concern. At this point, I felt maybe dicking around in crawler territory in wintertime wasn't the best of ideas. We decided that maybe it would just be best to head back to town and come back in the summer. On the way back, Jake says he knows a shortcut to where the van is. He says that there is an old stone path that leads us to the van. We follow, but something starts to feel off. My vision seems to feel off. The best way I can describe it is when an old camera struggles to catch up with rapid movement and everything is glitched. Martin starts saying something about his feet burning. Jake is basically dead quiet the whole time. Sun is starting to head down, and we are nowhere near the van. Ask Jake if we can sit down and tell him how my vision seems fucked. Jake doesn't respond. He just keeps walking forward. I ask if he's alright. No response. Martin asks Jake if something is wrong. No response. My head feels like it's on fire at this point, and I just sit because I just want the pain to stop. Martin starts yelling at Jake, but Jake just keeps moving forward. Finally, Martin shoves Jake to the ground. Jake asks what happened. He says he doesn't know what's going on. My headache was starting to subside a little, but the sun was finally dipping below the horizon. Jake asks where we are. Martin asks Jake what he remembers. He says he remembered us heading to the creek, and then everything after that was blank. We don't know what to do, and we start to panic. The sun goes down, and it's pitch black. This was the first time I realized how dark the night is, without any streetlights or cars. It was like staring at a wall. Could only see like 3 feet in front of me. It was also so cold that it felt like needles were being shoved into my face. Fumble through my bag and pull out a flashlight. While searching for a flashlight, I hear Martin try his best to bring Jake up to speed. I find it, and before I can say anything, Martin goes quiet. Jake goes quiet too. For 10 seconds, it's completely quiet. No animals. No wind. Not even the sound of snow being crunched by footsteps. The smell hits my nose, and it completely overtakes my nose. I start to cough, and then look at Jake and Martin. They are pointing at something. Look to where they're pointing at, and see something white pass cut through a tree. Martin screams, and points his Winchester at something. Jake starts to back away from Martin, and towards me. Point the flashlight in the general direction of where Martin is pointing his gun. It's a crawler. Martin tries to fire his gun, but nothing happens. He tries again, and this time, something does happen. The fucking gun explodes. Birdshot flies everywhere, and Martin falls to the ground. Ears are ringing. Everyone is screaming. Catch a glimpse at the thing. It's taller than any man I've ever seen. His skin is gaunt and colorless. Limbs are spindly, way too weak to support this thing. Face is almost featureless. Almost. I say almost because the eyes are the main feature. Black, like a shark or a dog's eyes. Stare into them, and I am met with the worst feelings. It was like my mind went blank, and every thought was instantly repeated with pure, negative energy. It was like staring into eternity. It was one of the worst feelings, and I am struggling to put it into words of what it was like. Loud bang fills the air. Jake starts firing his rifle and tells me to drag Martin. Martin is on the ground, writhing in agony, cursing and screaming about everything and everyone. Birdshot and bits of metal are embedded in his face, hands, and arms. Help him get onto his feet as I hear a ping. The thing is gone now, and it's just us. The wind starts picking up again. We drag Martin for about 40 minutes, trying to reach a road. We are lucky enough to stumble upon a road, and a car picks us up. Martin had to get a few bandages and stitches. It's been a few days since the incident, and Martin got discharged from the hospital a few days ago. Paid for his hospital bills and tried to talk to him. We talked for only a few minutes about what we saw. The last thing he told me was that he was taking his RV and heading to the southwest. He left 2 days ago. Jake, on the other hand, plans on seeing his family in Florida in a few days. He gets uncomfortable every time I ask about what happened that night. And that's the story of how I saw a crawler and vowed to go never looking for a cryptid.
I think Grays tried to abduct me last night, and I think I shot and killed one. I apologize, I'm not very good at writing. Failed every English class I've taken, but here's a green text with context. Been a night owl my entire life, a true neat degenerate. I stay up all night playing video games and sleep all day. Around 1 AM I let my dog out to do its business for the night, chilling in my kitchen on my phone, waiting for him to be done so I could let him back in. Notice a bright light in the sky off to the side of a nearby apartment building. Realize it's not a plane because there aren't any blinking indicators and it isn't moving. I notice it's not just a bright star because I live in Chicago and the light pollution means you don't get to see much, and it seemed just close enough to be over Lake Michigan. Decide fuck it, I'm bored. Attempt to channel some kind of meme energy and communicate that I want it to come closer and know more about A's, because I've read from stories on here that UFOs have sometimes reacted to thoughts. Nothing happens. Dogs want back in and I go back to grinding bad video games. After an hour or two, I randomly decide I want to lie down on my couch and take a nap, even though I'd just woken up a few hours ago and wasn't that tired. The nap lasted 11 hours. And was one of the most vivid dreams I've had in a while. I also remember my dog barking at something that woke me up, but he's an annoying little shit and barks at everything, so I immediately went back to sleep. I don't typically remember my dreams, and when I do, it's usually once or twice a month, and a lot of the dreams are blurry now, but I remember some specific moments. Trying to make it to a tower-like structure that was a very far distance in order to leave some kind of underground artificial environment. The environment was fairly large, maybe a bit bigger than a typical college campus or small town. Starry sky, small rolling hills, and a wide grassy field with few one-story buildings scattered throughout, dirt roads connecting them, and the large mountainous spire at the end that led up. And for some reason, we knew we had to climb to get out because we had come there before. While traveling across the field together in the dark, we came across a man with a vacant face and work overalls. He, in a monotone voice, told us we should go back because they were closed and blankly stared at us as we passed. I don't remember the exact reason, but afterwards, we ran into one of the buildings to hide from being found. The inside was similar to a parking garage with no vehicles, just slab concrete with an entryway and doors on both sides leading out, though one was locked. The two men were panicking, desperately trying to figure out where to go, while I watched the entrance we came in from. From the doorway in front of me, two stereotypical gray aliens come in. Height about up to my breast, I'm 6'2", and large heads that didn't fit their skinny bodies, one slightly taller than the other, with an arm extended reaching out for us. One of the men rushes at them to try to fight them off. The other ran away deeper into the building. Feeling something grab at me from behind, another singular gray that must have come out from the locked door behind me. All I see is its large fucking head and black vacant eyes staring up at me as I struggle to break away from it. I guess at some point during this, I instinctively reached for my waist holster and pulled my 1911 and fired off 7 rounds into its head. Another gray I hadn't seen, or possibly one of the original two, I'm not sure, comes over to grab the body of the one slumping over onto the floor. As I bolt out the door that was locked before, full sprint to the mountain in the distance, leaving the other men behind because I'm fucking panicking and full of fight or flight. I don't remember anything else past that. I woke up in a cold sweat in my bed, 2 flights of stairs up from where I had fallen asleep. My first response, of course, was that it was a bad dream like any normal person would. I went back down to my office in my basement, fired up a bad Korean FPS game, and played for a few hours. I started to get tired pretty quickly, like I hadn't slept at all. At this point, I remembered my dream, and I guess because of the game I was playing, I went to check my gun. I keep it loaded in my desk because some people tried to break into my home when I first moved in, and now I'm paranoid as fuck. There was only 1 round left in the 8-round magazine. I'm normally pretty skeptical of X stuff, so I just passed it off as, that's weird, and went back to gaming. It wasn't until I went to let my dog out that I just now remembered the light in the sky from the night before, and made the connection to everything. My normie brain is telling me it was a nightmare, and a weird set of coincidences, but my schizo brain is worried as hell. What the fuck happened to me? Should I be scared they'll come back? I've told this story here before, but I saw 3 grays. My ex-girlfriend's grandmother encountered them in the 70s in Pennsylvania. They informed her grandmother that they were there for the children. She prayed to Christ that they wouldn't take them, and they communicated they would be back for her grandchildren. Fast forward 40 years, and I wake up to 3 grays in my room with us, and I'm completely paralyzed. One gets a half foot from my face, and I can see my reflection in its pitch black eyes. Pray to Jesus for them to leave. As soon as I think it, they disappear. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. X rolls over and says, "You finally saw them?" She then tells me the story of her grandmother, and that they've been coming to her since she was a child. I've known her since I was 13 and never knew. See her grandmother later, and she begins crying, telling me what happened. From that moment on, I believe they were demons. Don't trust them, don't go near them. Pray to God if you see them. I think I was abducted by aliens. Just like the title says, I think I was abducted by aliens recently, and maybe other times throughout my life. Ever since I was young, I've been fucking petrified of aliens, and just about nothing else, and I've never understood why. Last week, I had a really strange and frightening experience, and since then have been suffering from anxiety and panic attacks, but also remembering a lot of things from my childhood that make me think I was abducted by aliens before. Maybe I'm just a schizo and didn't know it or something, and I've never really used 4chan before, but X seems like the place to post this story. I don't think I can tell anyone about this in person without them thinking I'm nuts. Greentext below. Be me, last Wednesday night, like 2 AM, getting back to my dorm after a long night with the boys. Trying to sleep, kind of fading in and out of consciousness but not fully falling asleep. Suddenly get a really weird feeling, like the room got really hot out of nowhere. Sit up. Immediately my head starts spinning, eyes go blurry. World almost seems like it's vibrating. Can't move at all. Facing away from it but hear the door either unlock or open. Definitely being fucked with. Hear movement below me, straining extremely hard and can only move my eyes. But look down over the side of my bed. It's lofted as high as it will go. See movement, but not specifically what is moving. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Not like a blur, but just the impression of something being down there and moving around. Suddenly feel an extreme, almost head-splitting pain, slightly above and behind my left ear, that moved from the skin towards my head. My head moves up, then left, then right. I have zero control over my own movements. At this point, the way my head is moving, it almost feels like how hydraulic machines move. Completely unnatural. Become very aware that there are a lot of people in my room, but I can't see them. There's this smell like black pepper and wet dog in my room. Maybe burning plastic too. Everything was extremely hard to place. Like my senses were very numb. Could not feel my body at all. Could barely see. Head turns again. This time about as far right as it could go to the wall behind me. Where the white wall should be. See a brownish panel with a ton of symbols that look like pick related. Immediately know that I'm looking at star maps. Like that thought just popped into my head. Look at my hands. Absolutely not my hands. Can see my roommate sleeping soundly on his bed on the other side of the dorm. Completely oblivious. Suddenly, everything is fine. Light is coming through the blinds. Check my phone. 6:23 AM. Awful headache. Other pains in my body that feel unnatural, like I'm sick or something. There's a painful bump above my ear, still over a week later. Later that day, have felt like total shit all day, but I'm attributing it to no sleep. Suddenly, feels like the whole world zooms out. Look at my hands. I'm again struck with the feeling that they are not my hands. Smell burning plastic again. Have to leave class and I'm freaking the fuck out for the rest of the day. This continues throughout the week. I'm not prone to anxiety or anything. This shit is completely new. Feel like I'm going crazy. Just feel like total shit emotionally. Everything is awful. Getting tired of it. This stuff is affecting my ability to do work. Really think hard about Wednesday night. I've heard of alien abduction stories. Some of it sounds to me like what people have experienced. Know that people sometimes experience abduction at multiple times throughout their lives and don't realize it. Try my best to remember other weird shit that has happened to me. When I was younger, I used to have really bad sleep problems. Sleep paralysis, night terrors, insomnia, you name it. A few things stick out to me. There are times I would wake up in places around the house that were always attributed to sleepwalking. Several times I would have dreams of seeing figures standing in my doorway in my room. Sometimes they would leave my closet light on. Closet door would never close. Think it was busted. Could see faces watching me from my closet, and would always know they weren't human faces. The number one memory which sticks out to me happened when I was 12 or 13. Wake up one night surrounded by tubes and machinery like I'm in a hospital. Keep getting that feeling like being on a plane or a roller coaster where your stomach keeps dropping. Have the same feeling as the other night where I can see things but not specifics. Eyesight isn't blurry or anything, I just literally can't figure out where I am. Unfamiliar environment, but my brain keeps telling me that it's my bedroom, even though some part of me knows it's not. Turn my head to the left and come face to face with something that looks like pig related, but not exactly. This thing has much bigger eyes, more like a typical gray. And the nose was basically non-existent, just two long holes in between the eyes and mouth. Immediately horrified. Swear to God, I have never felt fear like this before. Almost have a very powerful feeling that what is happening is real. The being is max 3 inches from my face, just staring like it didn't expect me to be awake. Fall asleep again despite being scared out of my mind. Wake up next morning. Life continues as usual. I grew up in the desert most of my life, Southern California / Utah. I've seen hundreds of UFOs. Most of the stories are boring. Never saw one up close, but saw stars start blinking and then shoot straight up into the sky, etc. The one story that's Greentext worthy is me 2 years ago, going to a backpacking trip in southern Utah between Boulder and Escalante, driving at like 2 AM with my buddy. We're tired as shit, so we pull over off the highway and set up our sleeping bags in the sand like 10 feet from the road. One of the few places in America where you can still see the Milky Way. Friend is asleep. I'm on my back, staring up at the stars. Hear a mechanical vibrating noise. Look around. Nothing near me. Car is off. No cars on highway. Friend isn't snoring. Stare back at the stars. Notice that if I stare at certain stars, the vibrations change. Certain stars are much louder than others. Feels like they're communicating with each other. I basically heard what I think were stars talking to each other. It was a really strange experience because it happened for 2 or so hours straight. The area of the country is beautiful. Boulder, Utah is a super cool town. The backpacking trail we took was gorgeous. I've had a few abduction experiences, but most of that is from sleep paralysis, which I get a lot. Me, 19, moved with mom and stepdad out into bumfuck nowhere, North Louisiana. I still call him my dad. 2-story house surrounded by forest. Scary as hell at night. Wednesday night, mom and dad go to church. I stay home watching VHS movies. Out in the middle of fucking nowhere, no cable, internet, but I have an arsenal of 80s/90s VHS movies. Watching some movie with John Cusack about airplanes or something. Boring, falling asleep on couch. Suddenly, hear weird sound outside, like on top of roof. Hard to explain sound, almost like a reflective swoop, followed by like a whining metallic wow wow wow. I know this sounds stupid, I don't know how else to explain. Blinding flash of light outside. At first I think it's lightning, but this light is so white it fills the entire house for a split second. Anxiety overloaded. Talk self down, rationalizing and breathing. Probably just a street light exploded, or something caused a transformer to overload. No, I'm utterly fucking lying to myself, but it's still comfortable enough of a lie to fall asleep. Figure if I fall asleep, I'll blink and mom and dad will be home. Have freaky fucking dream, naked on a cold surface, pinned down by unseen force. 3 or 4 hooded figures around me. Weird fucking faces. Faces look deformed, warped, like those weird paintings where the faces are twisted and exaggerated. Skin is freezing. Tubes inside of my body, with a breathing cup over my mouth attached to a tube. So fucking scared. Anxiety overloaded. Can feel tears streaking down my temples. One of the hooded creatures puts his hand on my forearm and digs his fingers into my skin and looks directly at me. His face is so fucking warped and weird, but his eyes are weirdly small and human. I can tell he was telling me to shut up. Can't help it. Chest is heaving out of control. Heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my neck and in my ears. Creature starts to choke me with his weird hand. I can't look at his face. His face is so terrifying. Just looking at him makes me feel like my mind is trying to slip away / shut down. Bawling hysterically, don't know what to do. Other creatures start stomping angrily towards me with some weird yellow laser axe / knife. I don't know how to explain it. Almost looked like one of those tooth flossers, but the floss was a laser. He grabs my left breast and pushes it so hard up my chest. I thought he was gonna rip it off. I think he's going for my heart. I don't know what else to do. All I can think of is my last resort, prayer. Remember a prayer my grandma told me when I was a kid, scared of monsters. I plead the blood of Jesus. All creatures start to squeal and wheeze violently. One of them seems to raise his weird fist, as if to bash it on my face and shut me up. Prayer seems to be working. Keep saying it over and over. Plead the blood of Jesus. Plead the blood of Jesus. Dad opening front door to house wakes me up. Oh fuck, it was just a dream. Mom, did you sleep the whole time we were gone? I just rolled my eyes. Mom and Dad head right upstairs. Sit on couch for an hour, thinking about the dream. So weird. Get up to go upstairs in my room. Clothes feel weird. Socks and underwear feel weird / off. Go to change clothes in my room. See red marks on my arm and neck. Uncontrollable panic attack. Run into my mom and dad's room, telling them what happened. They think I've lost my shit. Mom claims I'm demon possessed, etc. Dad wants me to start going to therapy. Dad stays with me in my room till I fall asleep. Wake up next morning. Cannot shake the feeling. It just gets worse and worse as the week goes on. I don't feel safe. I cannot sleep because I think as soon as I fall asleep, they're just gonna come back for me. Think only option is suicide. Go into bathroom, looking for sleeping pills and whatever I can OD on. Open drawer. Take a bunch of pills, sissy out and cry in defeat. See grandma's old KJV Bible and a stack of books. What the fuck is it doing here? Must have been my dad reading it on the toilet one time and forgot to take it back to the living room. Curl up with it against my chest and sleep in the bathroom with it all night in the bathtub. Wake up with Bible. Ask mom if I could keep it with me wherever I go. Mom teases me. Well, it's about damn time. Just don't lose it. She's always used to belittle me for not being Christian. Always take grandma's Bible with me now. Do not feel safe without it nearby. I try not to tell anyone about my story. No one fucking believes me, but I guess I don't blame them. Devout Christian now. I still have nightmares about the encounter, but I truly believe prayer saved my life from whatever those things were. My family and I have had a couple unusual encounters with A's. For whatever reason it may be, they have decided to be a part of our lives. I will be telling these 4 stories in chronological order. This will be my first time doing a Greentext, so bear with me. If you have any questions or doubts, please feel free to ask me any questions. Also, if anyone else has any stories they want to share, that would be much appreciated. Greentext below. Be me, 12 to 15 years old, early 2010s. In truck with stepmom and sister driving off somewhere, past abandoned houses. Giant bright orange orb emerges from the house. I see it. I think it looks cool. Orb goes off into the distance in S lines. Pointed out to stepmom and sister. Thing is so fucking big and obvious, they can't miss it. Stepmom says she doesn't see it. Sister says she doesn't see it. I'm confused. Arrive home and document the experience. I remember drawing it in the shape of a tube, with lights emitting from the bottom. This was the first UFO I had seen, and to this day, I don't know what it was doing at my house. My parents are divorced, so a lot of the time spent with them was split during the year. On this particular year, I decided to stay at my mom's house during the 4th of July. Be me, 16-year-old, 2013. It's 4th of July, family's out, and I decided to stay home. Looking up paranormal shit and getting spooked because it's fun. Decided to take my own pictures because why not? Shots are taken in my backyard. Backyard is very dark and get spooked. Feel like I'm being watched. Decide to go back inside. Look through my pictures and alter them using an app I downloaded. Use negative filter and higher brightness. Holy shit. Anomaly found in my backyard, Kino. Take a second look. Become very anxious. Eyes are clearly squinting due to flash. Head and body are visible in the picture. It's a fucking gray. Start freaking out at this point and delete the picture. Lock the house down, turn on all the lights, and hide in my room until my family comes back. I deleted the pictures afterwards because I didn't feel safe with it on my phone. I felt like having it was an omen of some sorts. I became paranoid for the rest of the night. I remember being afraid of seeing it out the window. Be me, 19 years old, 2016. Family moves into new house in a different city. Live in the back with grandmother. Grandmother is very religious. One night when I'm out, my grandmother is awoken to very bright blue lights at her window. So bright they fill the room with light. My grandmother has described these lights as heavenly lights. My grandmother begins crying and starts to pray. Bright lights dim and go away. My grandmother becomes hysterical and wakes my family. My mom tries to calm down my grandmother as she is clearly in a state of panic. Next morning, my mom tells me the story. My grandmother has calmed down, but I can tell she's still shaken up by the incident. Grandmother confirms the story. I'm confused because I arrived home that night around 2 a.m. and did not see anything. Take it into consideration, but don't think too much about it. A couple of days later, my mom takes a picture of the sky above our house. Above our house is a slim, metallic disc-like floating object. Become a bit paranoid again and feel anxious when coming home late at night. I would also like to add that my family around this time were hearing footsteps on the roof. We had raccoons in the area, but my mom and stepdad would profusely claim someone was on the roof. They described it as stomping. Be me, 23 years old, 2020, out with girlfriend, decide to go to the park. While at the park, we decide to look at the stars as it's becoming night. As we're stargazing, I notice it. A giant ball of fire is in the sky. I pointed out to my girlfriend and she sees it as well. We are in awe of this ball as it looks so unreal. We hear a plane coming by. Ball zips out to space like in the movies. Girlfriend and I are left speechless. This was by far my weirdest experience. I've heard stories of these balls, but to be so close and clear was a whole other beast. It literally looked like the sun was in the sky, except no light was emitting from it. It was also dead silent, which made it unnerving to watch. I feel like ever since I took that picture of the alien in my backyard, these guys won't leave us alone. I hope to never run into one. I feel like if I did, I would go insane. Thanks for reading.
When I was 19, I worked for a company that allocated labor to rural areas of Australia. Basically, what you did was tell them that you were available, and they'd send you to a remote farm for a few weeks, where you do whatever they needed done. It was hard work and long hours, but good pay and good fun, if you got in with a nice group of workers. When this occurred, I was working on a large property. I was told it covered roughly the same landmass of the state of Maryland, USA. About 9 hours from Sydney City. The property itself was about 40 minutes from the nearest town. In short, I was in the middle of nowhere. I was working at the farm, clearing bushland, with 3 other guys my age from our city. Our boss was a guy named Jeremy who owned the farm and supervised us, while helping out with the work. He was pretty laid back and was generally really good to us. This summer, in particular, was very hot, and the work was hard. So one day, when the temperature hit above 38 degrees Celsius, about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, Jeremy decided to give us the afternoon off. He said he knew of a waterhole on the farm, about a 25-minute drive north. I was keen for a swim, but the other guys just wanted to relax for the arvo. So him and I hopped in on one of the work trucks and started heading across the property. It was mostly wide and empty expanses with a few clumps of scattered bushland. Jeremy wasn't much of a talker, so we drove more or less in silence. After about 20 minutes, however, he suddenly perked up and jabbed me in the ribs. "Do you see that over there, beneath the 2 dead trees?" I should mention here that if you're not familiar with inland areas, particularly those in Australia, they are brown and red and mostly flat and bland, meaning any bright colors stick out like a sore thumb. So you can imagine our surprise when we could see a large, blue angular structure far off in the distance. We steered in its direction, and as we got closer, we realized it was a huge blue shipping container, just sitting in the middle of nowhere. Jeremy was perplexed. I asked him if he knew what it was, but he obviously didn't. He said he hadn't seen it when he drove through the same area about 5 weeks before, and he wanted to go and see what it was. Initially, we pulled to a stop about 10 meters away from it. At this stage, I had a really bad feeling. The whole thing wasn't right. It's hard to explain, but if you can imagine seeing such a foreign object in the middle of a huge barren expanse, it had to be something weird. Jeremy, however, wanted to investigate, which I understood, given it was his property, but in truth, I was really anxious. As we got closer, things got even more bizarre. There was a big diesel generator behind it, thumping away, and a CCTV camera on each side, all motion activated. So they buzzed from side to side, following us as we moved around. I tried to reason with Jeremy, Something along the lines of, "With all this security, someone obviously doesn't want us near here. Let's just go." He brushed me off, however, reminding me it was his farm, and whoever had put this here was trespassing. So he wanted to go inside. Despite all the surveillance, there was only a small padlock on the huge door. We had some bolt cutters in his toolbox, and after a bit of struggle, we broke the lock and went inside. The first thing I noticed was the rush of cold air as we got in. The place was air-conditioned, which, I must admit, was quite pleasant on such a hot day. We searched around for a light switch, but I could already see that there was some sort of IT setup. There were flashing LEDs all around the place, and the sort of hum you hear when our hard drive is working hard. When we finally switched on the lights, we could see a sophisticated, albeit somewhat cluttered, office setup. There were hard drives the size of bar fridges, and other computer equipment lining the walls, sometimes piled 2 or 3 high. Plastic storage boxes scattered around the far wall, and several desks with computer monitors arranged in the middle, complete with the rolling office chairs. At this stage, I felt like I was in one of those nonsensical dreams. This made absolutely no sense. We wandered in the middle and sat down at the desks to see if the computers could give us any idea of what the hell was going on here. My heart was racing, and I just wanted to bolt. We had been seen by the CCTV, so if anyone was monitoring us, they already knew we were here. Jeremy, on the other, was adamant we had to get to the bottom of this, so I put on a brave face and started looking through the computer. This went on for a while, but in short, neither of us had a very high grasp of technology outside of Facebook and Microsoft Word. The best I can describe it, from my lay position, is that it was endless lists of computer talk. It was like the old Napster or LimeWire download screens looked like, just constantly picking up and receiving data, then recording it on several windows. I gave up on the computers and walked cautiously over to the far end of the container to the big pile of storage boxes. By then, I was pretty sure no one else was there, as there were nowhere to hide, really. But I was still incredibly on edge. I decided against my better judgment to see what was inside all these boxes. My brief sift through this box still makes me feel sick to my stomach. It didn't take long for me to realize that this box was full of posters, DVDs, and photos, all of hardcore CP. One thing that still gets to me is that it was all neatly ordered into folders and smaller boxes. These people were organized. I immediately recoiled, jumped up, and ran over to Jeremy. I could hardly string a sentence together. I said something to the effect of, "Mate, get out. CP. Go. Get the fuck up." I dragged him out, composed myself, and managed to explain what I saw. We jumped back in the truck and sped back to the house. The farm had no mobile phone reception, and we hadn't bought the satellite phone, so we had to get back to the landline to call the police. Once we called them, they still had to make it all the way to the farm from the nearest police station, which was in a town about half an hour from the town closest to the farm. As I mentioned, very remote. We waited, talking frantically about what we'd seen, until the cops arrived almost an hour later. They arrived with 2 4-wheel drives, and we jumped and led them back. This is where it gets worse. By the time we got back, the container's door was open, and there was fire inside. We only had 2 small extinguishers in the car, and these did very little. The fire department took an hour to get there, by which stage most of the damage was already done. An arson reported by the federal police found almost no evidence of the computer equipment described, and only traces of paper and cardboard. This means whoever ran it knew we were there and had time to come and remove most of it and get away. There was various ways to get off the property, and the landmass was huge, so there was no real way to tell them, since the police hadn't taken us all too seriously in the first instance, probably due to poor explanation on the phone. Aerial surveillance was also impossible by the time we had pieced it all together. I took keen interest in following it up, but with no real evidence of who might be responsible, the investigation went cold. I've kept in contact with Jeremy, and the shipping container is still sitting there, on the farm. It's too expensive to move. I'll never forget what I saw in those boxes.
Finally finished it. Sorry for taking so long. Gonna be multiple posts since it's pretty long. For context, this all happened in the Northwest Territories in 2002. Closest town is around 30 miles away. Don't really know how to Greentext either. Hope it's fine. Be me, 19. Dad tells me granddad died, and after a while, we figure out he left me his old cabin. Think it's weird cause we never really talked. Figure it's because we were the only really outdoorsy people in the family. Never actually went there, but granddad lived there for a few years apparently. Super off-grid guy. Hated government and loved the wilderness. Hardcore survivor type shit. Had a shit ton of guns. Served in Korea. Loved shooting. Left a note with the will for me about the cabin, location, etc. Surprises me when I go on Google Maps to check the cabin or see if I can see it. No path visible, but the cabin is in a big ass field. Dad convinces me to head out there. Tells me it would be fun and it would be great to do in remembrance. Figure I'll take some friends since it's not that far from where I live, only a few hours drive. Finally get heading out that way with two buddies, Carter and Jay. I'm broke, so all I can bring is an old ass Enfield granddad gave me for my first gun. Jay goes full Chinese LARP in some old fucking Mao Halloween cosplay with a Glock 45 for some reason. Carter's a little normal but still brings some old .308 bolt action. Drive for about 3 hours from the starting destination before we reach the old road that head to the cabin. Can hardly see cause nighttime and snow coming down. Literally only light is the headlights and the stars, no moon, nothing else. Finish the drive down the old dirt road and the cabin gets illuminated by the headlights. Place is way bigger than I figured it would be. Think a 2-story house in the suburbs but cabin/wood made. Figure it's just an old picture and granddad did some renovation or something. Offload all our shit and head inside. No power, just a few candles. Whatever. We brought a shit ton of lights and a generator in the back of the truck. Leave Jenny outside, gas it up, and start hooking up the lights. Get the inside of the house done in about 20 minutes. Decide that's enough for the night. Only 2 bedrooms. Carter decides to sleep on the couch in the front room. Head to bed. Used to be my granddad's while Jake goes to the guest room. Room is dusty as fuck but pretty comfy. Set all my shit up inside, put all reliable Enfield up against the nightstand and head to bed. Switch off all the lights and fall asleep. Wake up to Jay, still in full Chinese LARP gear, in my room shaking my shoulder. The fuck you want, that MP3? Bro, I just heard something crunching in the snow. Then the generator went off. Tell him it was probably just a coincidence. Oh fuck, there's totally apes out there. Think to myself it's probably someone fucking with us or some hobo trying to get us to fuck off so we can sleep in the cabin. Ask him if he saw anything out of the window since he placed a generator right out of his window. Fuck no, I'm not looking out my window when there's something out there. Call him an idiot and tell him to come turn the generator back on with me. I'm not going out there, fuck that man, I'll wait till morning. Call him a pussy and say I'll get Carter. Grab my rifle and flashlight, then head down to the living room to get Carter. Jay follows since his room is downstairs. On the way down the stairs, I swear, I hear something outside crunching through the snow. Stop going down. Turn off my flashlight and sit still. Jay does the same. Dead fucking quiet. Like, completely quiet. No wind, no buzzing, nothing. Freak the fuck out. Sit for another 3 to 4 minutes in silence before I swear I hear the fucking whoop outside. Not right outside, but in the distance. Jay whispers in my ear, "You hear that too?" Shitting my pants but respond, "Yeah." Hear something start moving downstairs. Nearly shit myself and turn my light back on while raising my rifle. Carter's standing there, aiming his rifle at the window. Fucker looks up at me and he does this neck cut. Stop what you're doing thing with his hand. Turn off my light. Eyes are begging to adjust to see shapes. Can see Carter staring down his rifle's sight at the window. 5 or so minutes go before I can see him lower his rifle. Turn my light back on. There's someone else that ran on. What did you just say? I couldn't sleep, so I've been watching movies. When the generator went off, seen someone go by the window. Someone was on 2 feet, pretty sure. Seen it look in, and its eyes were at the top of the window. He didn't realize the window was higher off the ground due to the foundation. Literally like 6 feet off the ground. Would have to be like 8 to 9 feet to be at the top of the window. DEFCON 2. Alright, so are we turning the generator back on or are we going back to bed? Try to explain if there's a person out there. We should probably tell them to fuck off or something. Keep making up excuses to not go out. Fine, I'll do it myself. Trying to tell me not to go out and that they're seriously freaked the fuck out. Ignore them. Head out the door. Go to open it. Suddenly I'm fucking terrified. Literally can't move. break through whatever fucking trance I'm in and bust that bitch open. Scan with rifle and light for about a second before I see something in the woods moving. Now, you have to understand, there was a solid 250 feet of field. I had one of those fucking spotlight things. All it did was illuminate the tree line, and I seen it from 250 feet against the trees and snow. Fucker was pitch fucking black. Not dark, not gray, not dark. Like a fucking hole in the tree line into the abyss. You know that paint that's like void black or some shit? So dark it stands out even against other black? Like that. Thing stops and I see it crank its head towards me. I raise my rifle to it. Have a scope kinda like pic related. Not exactly, but similar. Can't take a picture of it since I lost it in a house fire. Look through scope. Heart fucking drops. Thing is moving towards me and probably already crossed 75 feet. Boom! Thing stops dead in its track. Can see it way better now. Still void black, but can see some kind of weird fur. Eyes are yellowish from what I seen. Looks like a Bigfoot got starved out in the Siberian gulag. Literally ape, but it's super fucking skinny. Like 8 feet tall. Thing looks back at me and lets out this fucking shriek. Not a roar, a shriek. I shit you not. This is what happened. Looking back on it, it's fucking hilarious, but in the moment, I probably gave my soul to. Jay comes flying out the door in full Mao cosplay and produces a Glock from the waist. Puts easily 10 shots down range. Can see the fucking thing trip and roll. Carter is firing from the window with the rifle. Scramble my ass back through the door. Sounds like downtown Detroit. Thing screams and retreats back to the forest. Holy fucking shit, dude. Jay's checking me since apparently I gashed my arm getting through the door. Carter's staring out the fucking window, glaring into the woods. Jay bandages my arm up and we all sit in a collective silence for 15 minutes. Decide to block all windows with random shit and barricade the door. Cue moving dressers and anything else big enough to block the windows to them, and moving a couch in front of the door. We all sit in the front room, behind a flip table. Literally the terrorists out of the Modern Warfare 2 house raid, if they knew 141 was coming. About an hour passes. Hear something coming up the window beside us. Hear it move to the front door. Thing lets out this ungodly howl. Scares the shit out of all of us. Things go quiet for about 3 minutes, other than the sound of crumpling snow. Hear probably 2 to 3 more things go to the door. Hear grunt. Things all start pounding on the fucking door. Mao cosplayer stands up and fires 3 shots through the door. All collectively decide to move upstairs to the top of stairs. Set up at top of stairs. After about 30 minutes, the banging at the door stops. More screeching. Things screech off into the woods. All night long, these fuckers circle the cabin, screeching. All night fucking long. Sun starts coming up, screeching fades into the woods. Complete silence for about 2 hours. Pass out from exhaustion. Apparently, Carter follows immediately after. Fucker was overdosing on caffeine the whole time. Cause fucker was making instant coffee from her hot plate. Wake up after approximately 3 hours sleep. Not sure if dream or not. Sit in bed for like 5 minutes. Mao cosplayer knocks on door and comes in. Talk for a while about what the fuck happened. Carter enters. Tell us we need to get the fuck out and get to the truck. Fuck that, man. This is our property. We need to kill those fucking things. Agree with Jay. Carter looks at us like we're stupid. This fucking thing is gonna kill us if we don't get the fuck out. Remind him we're armed. Fuck's sake, fine then. Give me a minute. Comes back like 2 minutes later with an HK-41, G3 but semi-auto. You fucking had that and didn't use it? My bag was on the couch. I really didn't want to go near the door. The fuck, man? Decide with the newfound firepower to go outside and try to set up lights and traps. Set up the lights with no incident. Jay pulls out 3 fucking bear traps. Oh, we're in business now. Took him from his dad in case we went bear hunting. Why we would go bear hunting with no dogs or anything is beyond me. Set them up around the porch. Decide to stay on porch and fuck these things up. I'll set up on porch, decide to shoot some rounds into the woods. Fire like 3 shots. Hear the fucking screech from the area I was shooting. Fuckers were watching us. Decide that we can see them or something. Suddenly, 4 of the 5 things start storming towards us. We open up like their landing craft at Normandy. I hit one in the chest and the fucker tumbles. Jay opens up with the Glock. Add another that turns and runs back where it came. Carter drops 2 more. One steps in the trap and pulls it 10 to 15 feet in one stride as it falls to the ground and gets lit up by me and Carter. Mission success. 5 casualties. I sweep the tree line with scope. Looks clear.jpg. Approach corpse of one of the things. Now for this, I rely on Jay and Carter's accounts of the story, as I'm nose blind and my smeller don't work. Thing smells like utter shit. Described as burning metal mixed with rotting flesh and the farts of all China combined in one pack, back to me. The one I drop suddenly starts vibrating on the ground. Not like washing machine, but like epileptic kid at rave. We all light the fucker up. Shaking stops. We debate heading home. Probably like 5-6 o'clock. Sun's pretty much down. Decide to spend one more night and go early in the morning. I'll bunker up in the front room and sleep in shifts. Fall asleep after mine and pass out immediately. Sleep through the night. Wake up in the morning. We all pack our shit, leave some stuff, and move some of the dressers back, leave others. Exit door. All the bodies are gone. All 5. Just gone. The tracks from them running up to us are still there, but whatever came and got them didn't leave any. Decide to run to the truck since it's only like 50 feet from the house. All windows are fucking smashed. The tail lights are just gone. Dented to all shit. One tire flat. Fuck it, let's go. Agree with Carter. I'll hop in. Turn the bitch on and put her in drive. Punch the shit out of there. Heading through forest. Look in the mirror. Shit you not. Like 20 of the fuckers running after the truck. Oh fuck, fucking shoot them. Carter and Jay making ISIS Toyota chase look like a joke with the amount of lead going down range. Drop probably like 3 or 4 of them while going like 120 kilometers per hour down the fucking shitty gravel road. They aren't quite as fast, but they're keeping up. Scared as shit. Reach turnoff and get on the highway. Increase speed to like 175 kilometers per hour. Shit you not, felt like the truck was gonna explode. Things don't follow us into the highway. Drive like 10 minutes at 150 into town. Get pulled over by the fucking one cop on the highway. Everyone freaks the fuck out and tries to hide the guns. The fuck do you think you're doing going that fast on the fucking highway? It's icy as fuck out here. Try to explain what just happened. Expect to get arrested for being high. Cops get real quiet. You know, my granddad, don't you? Yeah, he was my grandpa. Cop looks back at us. I'll deal with it. Get it all cleaned up for you. I'll give you a call when it's all done. What the fuck? Yes, sir. Tells us to get out of town. Says they follow scent and cops don't want people to get freaked out by them. Agreed. Drive at more moderate speeds all the way out of the province, only stopping once for gas. Head back home and we all get out at our hangout spot. Discuss what the fuck happened. Retell story from all POVs about 12 times. Agreed to not tell anyone. We split up. I head home. Open door announcing I'm back. Hear dad call my name. I got a call. Oh? Dad starts basically crying. Oh god, I'm so sorry I didn't tell you about them. I thought they'd left that area years ago. Try and get him to tell me what they are. Refuses to tell me. Tells me the government will deal with it. Literally first time I've ever heard him say anything positive about the government ever. Sleep. I get a call from the same cop a few weeks later. And he told me that the cabin had to be replaced. Replaced? Tells me they have to replace the entire cabin every few years to prevent things from returning to the same area. Tells me it's the same place but completely different now. Only one floor but pretty long. Explains that granddad used to deal with the things. Explains to me granddad used to help the government kill things that like to kill people. Tells me the things are called, I shit you not, blackies. Also feels they need to tell me they aren't human. No shit. Wishes me good luck in future endeavors. Return the wish. Hangs up. That was all 20 years ago. Telling story for the first time now, due to wanting not only to get it off my chest, but also just wanting to get opinions on it. Sorry if it was too long. I earnestly don't believe it was Bigfoot or Skinwalkers or Wendigo, and that it was something far less known entirely. I've only been back to the cabin twice, once with the same 2 friends and GF, and once solo. Cabin was different both times.